was that the parties start becoming a big tent organization where they're trying to reach as many people as possible in order to get that minimum winning coalition more than their opponents do. So I think over time, though, do you get the sense that in this general election like we're having right now, are the parties reaching out, are they becoming a big tent to try to get as many people to support them? Yeah. What do you, does anybody want to comment on that? Is it the same or has it changed? I would argue it's changed.
I think that the candidates really just stick to their side and just keep speaking to the people like that agree with what they're saying anyways. They don't really try to go outside of like their beliefs or like their policies, I guess, and try to like get other people to vote for them. They kind of just stay with who they know is voting for them and agrees the same way.
Yeah, that's what I'm hearing as well. Yeah, and I think because, especially for the presidential race, there's such close margins right now. You know, they're just kind of staying true.
Yeah.
And not trying to expand into different territory necessarily because they don't want to lose votes. Yeah, so it's interesting how it's kind of changed over time. Okay, so a political party. Sarah, I'm going to ask you to turn to page 56, please. No, 58. 58. Yeah.
Really quick on the last slide, what was the importance of the minimum winning coalition?
Well, that is just the groups and individuals that you need to attract. If you're a candidate, you act strategically to attract just enough votes that you're going to have more than everybody else. So that's the minimum that you need. Winning, have more than others. Exactly, yeah. So on page 58, do you see the definition of a political party?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, would you please read that?
A group of people who share common goals and attempt to control government by winning elections.
Excellent. They're going to seek, okay, and I'm going to ask you to read another one too. Seek to control government by
Winning elections.
perfect, winning elections. So groups are formed primarily to win elections and then subsequently influence policy. But you've got to have the power, you've got to have the seat at the table. And the way you get that seat at the table is you have to win. If you lose, you're dead. You don't have the power. So that is the goal of a political party, win elections. All right, so here are some examples of political parties that we have in the state of Texas. Of course, we have the two major parties. We have the Republican Party and the Democrat Party in Texas, but we have some other parties here. We have the Socialist Party of Texas, Green Party of Texas, Libertarian Party of Texas, Communist Party of Texas, and Texas Forward Party. So have y'all heard of the Forward Party? No? All right. No. It was a great thought. Well, I shouldn't say was. It's still there. I had to check today. Around 2020, Andrew Yang, Democrat presidential candidate, and Christine Todd Whitman, Republican, who had been our education secretary under, I think, George W. Bush's administration. Anyways, bipartisan, two different parties got together and said, you know, enough of this polarization. We're going to try to find a third kind of way and build from the bottom up, grassroots up, build this party. And so they were having meetings all around the state during the 2020 presidential election. I just looked and they have a poll watching party tonight in Houston, but I couldn't find anything else going on with them. So, you know, it seemed like a great idea, but it's hard to challenge our two major parties in their power, in their influence. So just looking at these different parties, which are more coalitional, trying to find a coalition, versus which are more ideological, based on ideas and thinking about government? So which would you say are the more coalitional parties? Democrat, Republican, precisely, good. And would you say these others are more ideological, communist, socialist, libertarian, green,
Yes.
and then the Reform Party? Yeah, okay, good. Do you hear many of these ideological
No.
parties winning
No.
elections?
Never.
Never, exactly. Just about, yeah. Some odd
They don't work.
elections. It doesn't. So why do we have them? Why do people give their time, resources, and efforts to go out there and support these parties? Why are
Does
those
it-
people meeting in Houston tonight for the Forward Party?
Doesn't it, I mean, have to do with taking away votes from the Republican and Democratic Party? Like, just like RFK, whenever he was taking votes, and then he dropped out of the race and endorsed Trump, which is all his votes then went, like not, but theoretically the people who like followed him would have,
Yes.
since he endorsed him.
Right. Right. Exactly.
So they're almost like a way to help get the other, sway the other ones.
Good. Because, yes, oftentimes they exist because they don't feel like the parties are addressing their interest. So they're going to create their own party and really focus in on what they would like to see happen. Not with the anticipation of winning elections necessarily, but of taking a stand. This is really important. We need more green policy here in the state. So we're going to form our party. We're going to have a platform. We're going to make noise and get attention.
And then whenever they drop out, and they endorse another one like RFK, he endorsed Trump, so now all the health, make America healthy again is like become one of the Republican kind of stances, I guess.
Exactly.
So that he is getting what he wanted out of it,
Yes.
kind of.
Yes. Yes. Exactly. So yeah,
What was it, ideological and what was the?
coalitional.
Coalition.
Yeah. So that minimum winning coalition focus. Right. So they are focusing in on an interest they don't feel like the two major parties are helping along or making policy about enough. They also are a way to organize people. So if you think about, I don't know if y'all remember the 1% and the 99%. They were in New York City. They were camping out in parks and they were protesting inequality of income. Do you remember that a long time ago? No? Something like, okay. Well, it kind of petered out because they didn't have an organization. They didn't have leadership. They didn't have a structure. Who does what? And so it just kind of faded. So it's very helpful if you have some kind of organizational structure so you know who's responsible for what, and it kind of brings people together and is a way to promote collective action where a group is actually acting for a certain goal. Otherwise, we're making posts online, but are we really doing anything? So a third party helps kind of round up the troops that want to pursue these types of ideological policies, and it organizes them. And they'll give money to help them survive and all that stuff. So it's easier if it's out there already. You can contribute. However, one thing that happens though with these parties is that they kind of flag, okay, this is something that people care about, potential coalition member over here, and politicians will kind of bring them into their party in order to expand their coalition. Okay, so elections and voting, we're still doing some crossover between elections and voting and political parties. Key terms, majority versus plurality elections, we've talked about that quite a bit. Someone who hasn't spoken yet, would you please distinguish majority versus plurality election? Thanks.
Majority is like 51% or whatever, 50% plus one. And plurality isn't the majority, but the most winning number.
Perfect, thank you. Very good. All right, so we have those different types of elections to consider. You may remember this from previous weeks. We have single member districts. What's the alternative? You can have a single member district where you're electing one person from your district for our state legislative offices, or a member of Congress, one person, a single member district. What is an option to that? What else could we do? Single versus multi. Yeah, multi-member districts, exactly. Where maybe it's a bigger district, but you're electing 3 people from that district, and the top 3 vote getters would be elected to go serve. But no, we don't have that. We have single member districts. We have winner take all. You have the plurality of votes, you got it. There is no sharing of power. You've got it. Winner take all. And again, the minimum winning coalition. Very good. You need the minimum winning coalition. So these characteristics, majority versus plurality elections to win, single member districts, winner take all, minimum winning coalition, all of these characteristics influence, gotta get another marker, it's Duverger's law. D-U-V-E-R-G-E-R, Duverger's law. Duverger's law states plurality, single member districts, and winner-take-all elections lead to minimum winning coalition goals that favor a two-party system. So somebody on this side of the room, please explain that, because somebody on this side of the room already has.
Can you spell that word again?
Okay, D-U-V-E-R-G-E-R, Duverger. Duverger's law. This one? Oh, single? So why? Why do you think that those characteristics would favor a two-party system rather than a three-party system? Maybe something like we have in Europe, the parliamentary type elections and government. They have a bunch of parties running and actually winning seats in parliament. Why don't we have that? It's Duverger's law. Can you explain it?
Is it the taking away votes if you have like another candidate and that could be like similar or like?
Thank you, Jaden. Yeah, yes, right, because we've had these two parties since the beginning of our country's history. We didn't create a parliament, but we created Congress. And so, and then also our state legislature taken after that. So, it's right, you've got two parties. I mean, anything else would diminish your chance of winning. Yeah, good, so you just have two that way. And then, of course, this is the asterisk minimum winning coalition, which are individuals, groups, and our organizations that combine resources to advance a certain purpose. It can be a political party, it can be an interest. Coalition is these groups coming together. Now, I did research one time to see, okay, who is within the coalition in Texas for the Democrat and Republican parties. And so I tried to find things in newspapers, et cetera, to tell me, okay, who are the coalition members? And these are the ones I could find. Yes?
I'm so sorry, what's the last point on the last line?
Coalition.
Coalition.
Coalition again. Does this make sense? Okay, so you could say that each of these bullets represents a faction within the party's coalition here in the state. So Sarah, I'm going to ask you if you would please read the definition for faction on page 59.
Division group within a political party.
Very short and sweet, right? Division within a political party. So it's kind of interesting. They have different goals. Like NARL is National Abortion Rights Action League, the Texas chapter. And then we also have Progressive Women's Coalition, Service Employees International Union, which is for like maids of hotels, maybe restaurant waiters, service employees. They don't organize very frequently, so that's their organization. Like Democrats, Young Democrats. So each of these entities, there's some overlap, right? But they're also pursuing different goals that would benefit them, and that's why they wanted us. Better working conditions for those hotel maids, etc. On the Republican side, we have Texas Right to Life, to balance NARL, Texas, Latin in Texas, Asian Republican, Juan Seguin, Liberty Caucus, Young Republicans. And so, again, these are factions within the party's coalition, kind of pursuing different goals.
How did you look is that? Like, how did you, are these like different groups that go for each party? Yeah, how did you
Yeah,
get that?
right. No, I was just looking like at Texas Tribune articles, and I just kind of searching, trying to find faction within the party, and maybe he's using the term faction, yeah. But, yeah. But I know there's more. I just wanted to make it substantive. Okay, now we're going to look at the three major functions of a political party. And thank you so much. We're going to start off with party in the electorate. The electorate is us, it's the voters, it's the people who elect. So party in the electorate is the first part. All right, the party in the electorate function. Okay, Texas, as y'all said, doesn't require party registration. Texas does not require party registration. So y'all know that. So we're not locked into a particular political party. You can say you're a Democrat one day, okay, you're a Democrat, and be a Republican the next day, you're a Republican. Nobody's gonna argue with you. You know, it's not something that we put on paper and register as, unless we just go vote in those primaries. And of course, voting in primary elections, you can be a member of the Republican Party and go vote in the Republican primaries, or you could be more interested in the Democratic Party and then go vote in the Republican primary to try to get a weaker candidate elected. Strategic. So, you know, you have that flexibility here because we're not registered.
Wait, so if you're like in another state and then like you're registered Republican, you can only vote for Republican? Like even in like the general election, you can only vote for,
Oh, no,
like,
that would be the primaries, of course, right?
okay, so only for the primaries.
Right, right,
Okay.
that's a really good point, yeah. So party label cues voters. If you went to vote recently, you saw a lot of candidates' names on there you might not have known. So you know if they have an R or D next to them, you kind of know things that they would support, and it cues us. So the people who are voting for particular parties, they can look for that party label and vote for that candidate. It's helpful, instead of having to learn about all the candidates. Coalitions, we just talked about coalitions and factions within those coalitions. So the parties, we can have groups with identity politics. Identity politics are based on group memberships. So who does your group support? And which party does your group want to see get elected? So if you consider yourself, you know, an active member of a certain group, then that might influence which party you're going to vote for.
Would you say that if we removed party labels from like voting sheets, would that encourage people to do more research on who they're voting for, or would it just cause more people to vote without knowing who they're
Yeah, that's a really good question.
like voting for?
What do you think?
I mean, personally, I would like be more inclined to actually do research, but most people probably wouldn't care enough. I don't know.
You
Just
wonder.
depends, I guess.
Yeah. And you also have just that vote roll-off. So people vote at the top of the ticket on their ballots, you know, those top offices, and then as they get lower down, they stop voting as much, just automatically, just because they don't think those races are as important. So, you know, party identification or not, that roll-off can happen. But, yeah, that's such a good question, because sometimes you can do just, okay, you can take a guess, but then name recognition, think about that. That would, okay, I like that name. They vote according to the name or something. So, you know, at least with the party label, it is a bit of a cue, right? The people kind of know what they will stand for then if they vote for them. But, you know, there's arguments for and against. What do you
With the voter party registration, are most states like that, or are most states like Texas, where we don't have to like put what we are?
I think probably, and I don't know for sure. I only know of a handful of states where you have to declare your party when you register, but I just haven't investigated how many. Yeah, that's a good question. So, all right. So can you think about groups that where you're a member of that group might lead you to vote a certain way? Racial groups, religious groups, age groups, those, and so on and so forth, income level groups. Yeah, so that can all kind of affect how you vote, but of course it depends on which group membership is the most important to you, because we're all members of lots of different groups. This is tribal politics. Have y'all learned that's come up quite a bit? Tribal politics in the last decade or so. Tribe, part of the tribe. We're following our leader. Doesn't matter what they say. We're following that leader. So that is something, just a loyalty to a certain leader, and we're seeing that, I guess, and also, you know, polarization exacerbates that too.
Well, I didn't catch the second link.
This one?
Yes, ma'am.
That's identity politics. Like, where's your identity? Like I said, you know, all of us are members of different groups. You know, it's how we identify ourselves. What group is up there as important to you in your self-identification? And then that can influence how you vote, because people in that group tend to vote for this party or that party. Another slide about the party in the electorate. Okay, local parties are one of those linkage institutions, and through political parties we hear what candidates are saying, we're hearing what the party is saying to us. BOK published like the seminal work on voting, particularly in the southern United States. You see, it's a little bit dated, but people still refer to him all the time because it's such a massive study that he did. And he puts in his book that the voice of the people is but an echo chamber. Have you heard of that phrase?
I have now.
Sorry?
I said I have now.
Oh, okay, good. So the output of an echo chamber bears an inevitable and invariable relation to the input. So who's doing the input? Who's doing the output? As candidates and parties clamor for attention and vie for popular support, the people's verdict can be no more than a selective reflection from among the alternatives and outlooks presented to them. So where is the source, according to VOT? The candidates, good, and the parties, what they're saying about the parties, very good. And then who's echoing back?
The people of
People.
Denver.
So to me, this is kind of, because we're supposed to have popular sovereignty, right? It's supposed to be what the people want, and then we elect representatives based on what we want, and when it kind of correlates what they're saying with what we think is most important in government. But what is the source of that? What we want? Is it because they're saying stuff to us that we react to? Instead of us kind of being the beginning of it all. And maybe. So when you think about democratic processes in a way, we think, okay, here's the people. And we're electing our candidates, our officials, to represent us. But what's VOK arguing?
The opposite.
Exactly, very good. Yeah, good, yeah, excellent, you guys. Yep. So is it two-way? Is it one-way? Is it only from the officials to us? We don't know, we don't think about it, we just do what they tell us to do?
I mean, kind of. I mean, yeah, now.
Because, I mean, the officials already have their opinion set in place.
Yeah.
So they're not really listening to the people that are voting for them, they're just going off of what they already have in place. And the people are just like,
That's true. All right, so they're telling us campaign promises, this is what we're gonna do. people react to that.
I feel like in the like whenever you had all the small groups like the Green Party and all that, it is the people electing the officials. But as they grow bigger, it's the officials electing the people to vote for them.
Why do you think that is?
Well, because before, like the smaller parties, they don't have any recognition. It is people forming to create a group because they're angry with the other groups. Whereas the other, like Republicans and Democrats, they're so big, like, and there's so many like hot topic issues that like people react to. Like, just people have like a lot of emotions about certain issues like taxes and abortion and the board. Like those are all very like emotional responses. So depending on what the official says is how you respond to it is kind of, I don't know.
No, I think, yeah, absolutely. So, you think it's intentional what they said?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Very.
Because what are they trying to do?
Win elections.
Exactly. And then, so they have to appeal to the minimum winning coalition. So they figure out who's our coalition.
And how can we respond to their emotions to get them to go out and vote? Because if you don't have an emotional response, you're not going to be motivated to go.
Man, I hope that's right. I don't know, just with the emotional laden ads that they've got out there now.
Yeah, I mean, you have like whenever you see an abortion ad and it's like whether it's for or against, and you have one that's for and it's saying like showing a woman being like raped or something, and then you're like, oh my gosh, that's horrible. We need to support it. But then if you see an ad where it's like a baby with a heartbeat being killed, then you're gonna be like, oh my gosh, that's horrible. Like, you know, they're both emotional responses.
Exactly, and you're absolutely right that political ads especially are really trying to trigger that. Yeah, thank you, Noah.
Why are the presidential candidates like hammering down abortion if that's not something that they can do?
Oh my goodness.
I didn't mean to bring that up. It's just an example.
How many things can they not do that they're saying they can't?
Like the Supreme Court was like, hey guys, the state's gotta do that
Yeah.
now. But here's both political parties being like, the other side sucks because they believe this.
For
So
sure.
is it like just them saying that they suck, or is it them saying that they're going to make it like a mandatory thing?
Well, if you think about it, how could a president change the interpretation of the Constitution?
Through this judicial
Supreme Court.
branch. Supreme Court.
Okay, Supreme Court nominations, or convince Congress to propose a constitutional amendment, right? Because the Constitution's been interpreted this way, it'll change the Constitution. How else?
Garner enough support from people. I don't know.
Yeah.
Because they couldn't make like a mandate on this.
No. Couldn't do an executive order on it. Couldn't call out the military.
No.
And I mean, since the Supreme Court's divided, it's not gonna really work.
Yeah.
Anyway, so.
Okay. Yeah. So how are they gonna do it? Exactly.
They're gonna hope that they can do
They're
it.
not.
We've got a gridlocked Congress. How much can they do?
Not
with
much.
Congress? That just depends on, I guess, the majorities, right? But even so, filibuster will be a ways for the minority party to stop things from happening. So all these promises, like, okay.
And that's where it comes back to the emotional response, and a lot
Yes.
of people don't look at, oh, the president actually can't do anything about abortion law, so.
Exactly.
But they see that on a poster or an ad, and then they're like, oh, I need to go up for them, because.
Exactly. You know, they can put something in the State of the Union address, like the State of the State address, and try to influence Congress. Just depends on the majorities in Congress. So, yeah, I think it's, so, I don't know, I like to think about, you know, who's controlling the conversation here? Which direction is it going? And, yeah, what are they saying and why are they saying it? Okay, so that's party and the electorate. Let's see, Cole, what is the electorate? We just talked about the electorate, so what does that mean? Absolutely. People are electing, yeah. voting for these different parties. So party and the electorate. So a political party consists of three parts. So people in the electorate, the people who are voting for that party, supporting that party, would be the electorate. And so now we're going to look at the party in government function. So the party is useful for that minimum winning coalition. It helps. So I'm getting ahead of myself. But once they get elected, of course, the party does influence what kind of policies the government is pursuing and the success of those policies. So we know that the party in government organizes government. We think about the Texas legislature, Texas governor, what party they represent. We've had unified trifecta government since, I'll just say 2000. Just makes it easy to remember 2000. It was 1996 was the last when statewide elections stopped being won by Democrats. Republicans since 1996 were winning the statewide election. So just around 2000, we've had a unified trifecta versus a divided government. Oh, I'm sorry, it's 2003. So this blank, unified versus divided government. I'm sorry, I kind of skipped a line there. Unified versus divided government. Divided government is when one of the three entities, the governor, the House, or the Senate, is a different party. It's divided government. So you have two parties who have power among those three entities. Trifecta is when the same party controls all three. So you can see in this image, in 2003, Republicans had the majority in the House and the Senate, and the governor was Republican. So the last time we had a Democratic trifecta, you can see, was in 1994, and then Republicans started winning more and more statewide races. So we had divided government 95 to 2002, and then we started a new phase of unified government. So this, yes, sorry.
Sorry, what are the three chairs that make a unified government?
Okay, it's the governor, the House majority, and the Senate majority. What party, does the governor represent? What party is in the majority of the House? What party is in the majority of the Senate? And so you think about, what does that mean? So either during a Democratic trifecta or Republican trifecta, well, how would that affect policy making?
All the
It would be
policy.
swayed in their favor.
Yeah.
Sorry, Grace?
It would be swayed in their favor.
It would be swayed in their favor, correct, because
They would control the policy making.
exactly. And so the Republicans in the legislature could feel pretty confident that the governor will sign their legislation, and the governor, when he gives a State of the State address, can feel pretty confident that those legislative leaders are going to try to get those bills passed that he wants to see passed. Exactly. It kind of greases the machinery and it helps policy get passed. Whereas when you have divided government, what happens to policy making?
It'll get stopped. Government might not
It gets
stop
them back and
bills.
forth.
Right, it's back and forth, you have gridlock, can't agree. It's kind of like with our Congress lately, we've seen that happening. So it slows it down a lot.
But isn't it also good to have like a more mixed group, because then only one party's opinions and policies will be implemented.
Yeah.
So it's like a in between a rock and a hard place on
It kind of is.
which one you want.
It is. 'Cause you want to get things done, and yet I go back to the founders of the Constitution. The branch they were the most worried about was Congress. Congress taking on too much power. So they wanted Congress to be deliberative and to be limited. 2 chambers, and so on and so forth. So if that was their intent, then it does kind of make you think about, when you have this trifecta, is that in the best interest? Because it does make it easier. On the other hand, like you're saying though, if you have gridlock, Those of y'all who are looking at board security know it's a problem. Okay, legislative leadership. So think about who is the leader of the Texas House. Montana. Do you remember the leader of the Texas House, what their role is?
I remember that one of them, there was two, and one was elected by people, and one was appointed by the people in the House, or something. The Speaker of
Yes.
the House. I don't remember what he did.
No, that's awesome. No, that's exactly right. That's what I was looking for, the Speaker of the House. Good, thank you. Okay, Braden, who's the leader of the Texas Senate? Okay, Lieutenant Governor?
Oh, yeah.
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 Yeah, good. So, when you have a trifecta, think about that. And we're not quite like Congress, but we're pretty close, where the committees that are created within our legislature reflect the party divisions within the chamber. So in Congress, if you have 60% Republicans, their committees are going to be about 60% Republicans, which means they're always going to favor Republican policies. And Texas is kind of like that, actually. Do you remember reading about this? We're a little bit different with our committees, where there are some Democrats who are selected to chair committees in the legislature. Yeah, that happens every once in a while. But being on the majority party, or with the majority party, is a great advantage to getting your legislation passed. And of course, you're having to work with those legislative leaders that you two just said, because they've got that carrot and stick, right? You want to please them in order to get the committee assignments that you would prefer. So that has an effect too. Redistricting, it's the last point, redistricting. We talked about that when we looked at the Texas legislature. What does party have to do with redistricting?
Crap them or something.
Yeah, there you go. Exactly. Pretty much everything, right? It is a partisan process. The majority party is going to draw those district lines in order to help them get elected, because what is the goal of a political party?
To get elected.
Exactly. Purposeful, intentional. Get as many of our seats won as possible. All right. Power of trifecta. We mentioned a little bit of this. So, governor, when he gives his state of the state address, he says what he thinks are emergency legislation items, right? So that emergency legislation will be attended to by the legislature, especially if they're the same party, right? You have a trifecta. Or even if we have divided government, if you are led by the same party, then it's more likely that those emergency legislative items will be passed. And in turn, when the governor issues an executive order, sometimes funding is required. And if you remember, if the governor wants to move funds around in the budget after the budget has been passed, he can do so, but he has to get the approval of the LBB, Legislative Budget Board. So if the governor wants to move money around like he did for Operation Lone Star, he had to get the approval of the LBB. If both of them are led by the same party, it's going to be a lot easier to do that. Whenever the governor's appointments need Senate confirmation, that will also make that easier as well, for the same party. And then passing legislation that the legislators enact and take to the governor, yeah, well, it's more likely if you have a trifecta that the legislation will pass. A vested interest in the party getting things done to make the party look good, make them look effective, etc. So the power of the legislature with majority and leadership, we talked about this, committee assignments, committee chairs and members, right? Because those legislative leaders, the lieutenant governor, As Speaker of the House, they assign representatives and senators to chair committees and be members of those committees. They also send bills to committees, which is a power, because you can send it to a friendly committee or not so friendly committee. And if you recall from the legislature PowerPoint, these leaders recognize you on the floor, and then also they play a large role in redistricting.
It's committee assignments and what was the second blank?
Oh, okay, sorry. It's committee chair and members.
Okay.
Yeah. And they select the chairs and who will sit on this committee.
What was the second blank after chair?
Committee members. Got that carrot and stick, you guys. So if you are a Democrat in the Texas legislature, what do you need to do to get anything done? To be able to tell your constituents, hey, you know, I was working for you, got some stuff done, here it is. What would you do if you were a Democratic member of the House?
Do bipartisan bills.
I'm sorry?
Do bills that are like bipartisan so that.
Excellent. Find some bipartisan bills to propose. Right, exactly. So you can say, I've got this passed. You can't go too far out on a limb, right? You've got to make sure you can get some Republican support to get that bill passed, get enough votes. Very good. So you've got to be able to compromise if you're in the minority party in order to get something done. Okay, we looked at redistricting before, cracking and hacking, like you said. So, somebody on this side of the room, cracking and hacking. Somebody who hasn't spoken yet. What's the difference between cracking and hacking? Oh, Montana, go ahead.
So cracking would be like, so there's rules like you have to be in a district for a certain number of years to run, and if they want to elect a certain, like if they're like, okay, I wanna run for this position, I'm a Republican, let's redistrict so that the district I'm in will elect me as their person because, you know, they're red, so, but that would be packing, so like redistricting so that most people are more Democrats or more Republican in an area, and cracking will be the opposite, which is where, you know, someone's running for the opposite party, they don't want them too much together, they don't want this person to be elected the next time, so then they separate them.
Perfect, thank you. Okay, on this side of the room, safe versus competitive seats. Any difference in those two? Yeah, thanks.
For the district, it's like that seat is for sure gonna stay Republican or for sure gonna stay Democrat.
Good. Do you remember approximate vote margin?
10%.
10%. Good job, thank you. Right. So, just looking at 2020 elected offices, how many people in each of these groupings were Democrats and Republicans? So 2020, that was prior to redistricting. 2022 was after redistricting. Let's see how the party distribution changed between those two elections. So U.S. House of Representatives from Texas, they're elected every 2 years. So in 2020, we had 12 Democrats and 24 Republicans. Now we got to add 2 members of Congress because our population has grown so much. And so the outcome from the 2022 midterms, with Democrats, we added 1 Democratic seat and then 1 Republican. So it was split evenly, so 1 Democrat, 1 Republican, 1 after that. For U.S. state senators, Democrats had 13 of the 31, Republicans had 18 in 2020. 2022, Democrats held 12, and the Republicans held 19. So Democrats lost 1, Republicans gained. Texas state representatives, Democrats were 67, Republicans 83, then after 2022, we had 65 Democrats and 85 Republicans, so the Democrats went down 2, the Republicans increased 2. For our Texas State Board of Education, the distribution remained the same, 6 Democrats and 9 Republicans. Evidence of redistricting? Maybe? What is it called when redistricting advantages one party over the other? Do you remember that term?
Gerrymandering.
Yeah, good. Could be evidence of gerrymandering, right? We'll just have to see how long that lasts. Goes through this election too. Okay, so partisan polarization is a thing. It's happening. You know, some people believe it started around 1994 with Newt Gingrich when he was our Speaker of the House in Congress, his contract with America, and not letting any legislation be voted on unless all the you got enough Republicans to make it pass. You had to have the Republicans agree before we went to the floor to vote on. So we see over time maybe some validity to that claim, because of course you can see here that we looked at before, the distance between Democrats and Republicans in the Texas legislature is increasing. It really is start to go down, 73, and then by 2000 there are no Democrats that are more conservative than Republicans. And we've looked at that image before. But I thought this was interesting data that I found. I looked at ideological identification percentages within Texas major parties, February 2017 and February 2023. So how are they identifying? So Democrats, the top number in the cell is 2017, and the bottom number is 2023. So conservative Democrats, 11% of Democrats identify as conservative, you guys, here in the state of Texas. I just remember being surprised by that result, but I think that goes back to our abiding conservatism in this state, and also how we were a Democratic state, until the latter half of the 1900s. So maybe that's older people who are still Democrats. Maybe it's people who are Union. I'm not sure. But anyway, so we do have conservative Democrats in the state. Then identifying as liberal from 2017 to 2023, that jumped up 16%. More people in the Democratic Party are now saying they're liberal. And those numbers obviously are coming from people who used to think they're moderate. That went from 44% to 29%. Look at the movement towards polarization, right? From moderate to more liberal in the Democratic Party. Republican identification, conservative, 2017 to 2023 went from 74% to 78%. Liberal Republicans, got some of those too. So 3%, that stayed the same. And moderate Republicans went from 23% down to 18%, suggesting that this polarization that we talk about is real. Right? That the political parties, people within those political parties are kind of moving out to the ends, either liberal or conservative rather than moderate. So I don't, chicken or egg, it's one of those things. Is it a reaction to politics is going and you have to make a choice now between liberal and conservative? Or are we doing this and politics reflect that? Okay. Well, y'all have been a great audience today. I'm going to go ahead and stop there, and we'll pick up with the last part